Christmas Eve at my parents' house always felt like walking into an ambush dressed in tinsel and fairy lights. I arrived at 6, carrying a bottle of wine and the same knot of dread I'd carried to every family gathering for the past 4 years. The house was already full, my brother Derek and his wife, my sister Melissa and her husband, assorted aunts and uncles, my parents presiding over it all like monarchs surveying their kingdom. "Emma's here," Mom announced, her voice bright with forced enthusiasm. "Come in, sweetheart. We were just talking about Melissa's promotion." Of course they were. Melissa stood by the fireplace, glowing in a red dress that probably cost more than my rent. "Regional manager," she said, extending her hand like I should kiss her ring. "Youngest in the company's history. 68,000 a year, plus bonuses." "That's amazing," I said, meaning it. "Congratulations." "And what about you, Emma?" Uncle Paul asked, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Still writing?" The way he said writing made it sound like a communicable disease. "Yes," I said simply. "Still writing." Derek laughed from the couch, beer already in hand though dinner hadn't been served. "How's that going? Published your bestseller yet?" For years since I'd quit my corporate communications job to write full-time, and they still asked the same question with the same condescending tone. "I'm working on it," I said. "She's been working on it since 2019, Melissa stage whispered to her husband. "At some point, you have to accept it's a hobby, not a career." Mom patted my shoulder with sympathy that felt more like pity. "There's no shame in trying, honey. But maybe it's time to think about going back to a real job? Your old company might take you back. I could make some calls." "I'm fine," I said, accepting a glass of wine from Dad. "Are you though?" Dad asked, his voice gentle but pointed. "Because we worry, Emma. You're 32. No steady income, no benefits, no retirement plan. Derek's managing a whole restaurant. Melissa just got promoted. What do you have to show for 4 years of writing?" What did I have to show? 3 completed novels. 1 literary agent who believed in my work. Dozens of rejection letters from publishers. A manuscript currently under review at 5 major publishing houses. And a phone call scheduled for tomorrow with my agent about significant interest from a streaming platform, a call I hadn't mentioned because I'd learned not to share good news until it was concrete enough that my family couldn't dismiss it. "I have my work," I said quietly. "Work that pays?" Melissa asked, her voice sharp with fake concern. "Or work that costs Mom and Dad worry and sleepless nights?" "I support myself," I said, my jaw tight. "I have freelance editing clients. I manage." "Managing isn't thriving," Uncle Paul interjected. "It's barely surviving. When are you going to accept that writing isn't a viable career path?" Derek raised his beer. "Maybe she'll get discovered on TikTok. Isn't that how writers make it now?" The room laughed. Polite, pitying laughter that made my skin crawl. I'd heard it all before. At Thanksgiving, they'd asked if I was still playing writer. At Easter, they'd suggested I look into technical writing, at least that pays. Every birthday, every holiday, every phone call carried the same subtext: "Your dreams are adorable, but it's time to grow up." They didn't know about the agent. About the submissions. About the interest from publishers who saw potential in my work. I'd stopped sharing those updates after Derek had laughed at my first agent query, saying, "You know how many people think they can write books? Million. You know how many actually make money? Like 12. So I'd learned to stay quiet. To endure their dismissal. To save my victories for people who understood that creative work was real work. "Dinner's ready," Mom announced, and we all moved to the dining room. The table was beautiful: candles, china, a turkey that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I sat at the far end, next to cousin Jennifer, who worked in pharmaceutical sales and immediately started telling me about her $120,000 salary and company car. "But you're doing what you love, right?" she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "That's what matters. Money isn't everything." Easy to say when you have money, I thought, but didn't say. Dinner conversation revolved around Derek's restaurant expansion plans, Melissa's new office with a window, Uncle Paul's investment portfolio. I pushed glazed carrots around my plate and checked my phone under the table. My agent had sent an email: "Call me tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. News about the Netflix interest." Big news. Don't make plans for tomorrow, you're going to want to sit down for this. My heart hammered. Netflix had been interested in my second novel for 3 months, a psychological thriller about family secrets and betrayal. They'd requested the full manuscript, then requested revisions. Then gone silent for 6 weeks. My agent had warned me that silence could mean rejection or serious consideration. Big news could go either way. "Emma, are you listening?" Mom's voice cut through my thoughts. I looked up. Everyone was staring at me. "Sorry, what?" "I asked if you'd given any thought to our suggestion," Mom said. "About applying to grad school." You could get a master's in education, become a teacher. Stable job, good benefits, summers off to write your little stories. My little stories. I'd spent 4 years crafting those little stories. 4 years of 4 a.m. writing sessions and midnight edits. 4 years of research and revision and rejection and getting back up to try again. My second novel was 97,000 words of carefully constructed psychological suspense that had made my agent cry when she read it. But to my family, it was a little story. A hobby. Something I did because I couldn't handle real work. I'm not going to grad school, I said quietly. Then what's your plan? Dad asked, his voice carrying the weight of 4 years of disappointment. You can't write forever without something to show for it. At some point, you need to accept reality. Maybe she'll marry rich, Derek joked. That's a plan, right? More laughter. I forced a smile and took a long drink of wine. Melissa leaned forward, her voice taking on that specific tone she used when she wanted to sound wise. Emma, I'm going to be honest because I love you. This writing thing? It's not happening. You've been at it for 4 years with nothing to show. No book deal, no publications, nothing. Maybe it's time to accept that you gave it a shot and it didn't work out. There's no shame in that. She's right, Aunt Carol chimed in. You're young enough to start over. Get a real career going. You could be making good money by 35. I set down my fork carefully, my hands shaking. I appreciate your concern, we're just trying to help, Mom interrupted. We hate seeing you struggle like this. Living in that tiny apartment, barely scraping by, all for what? A dream that clearly isn't working out. How do you know it's not working out? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Because if it was, you'd have a book deal by now, Melissa said, as if this were obvious. Publishing is competitive. If you were actually good enough, someone would have bought your book. The words landed like a slap. If you were actually good enough. I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone rang. The sound cut through the dinner conversation like a knife. I glanced at the screen. My agent, Sarah Chen. Calling at 7:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Sorry, I muttered, standing. I need to take this. Emma, we're having dinner, Mom protested. Can't it wait? But I was already walking toward the living room, pressing accept. Sarah? I thought we were talking tomorrow. I know, Sarah's voice was breathless, excited. But I just got off a call with Netflix's head of content acquisition, and Emma, I couldn't wait. Are you sitting down? Not really. I'm at my parents' house. Christmas dinner. Okay, well, find somewhere to sit because, Emma, they want it. They want exclusive rights to your book for a limited series adaptation. My knees went weak. I grabbed the back of Mom's favorite armchair for support. They want, what? Your book. The Family We Keep. They're offering $4.2 million for exclusive adaptation rights, plus back-end percentages, plus a consulting producer credit for you. Emma, this is huge. This is career-defining. The living room tilted. $4.2 million. That's. I couldn't form words. That's not possible. It's very possible and it's happening. They've been developing this quietly for weeks. They want to announce it January 2nd. They're talking about a major actress for the lead, think A-list. They see this as their next big psychological thriller series. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. $4.2 million. They need an answer by tomorrow morning, Sarah continued. But Emma, this is the offer. This is the one. We're saying yes, right? Yes, I whispered. Oh my God, yes. That's my client. Sarah screamed so loudly I had to pull the phone from my ear. Okay, I'm sending contracts tonight. We'll review them tomorrow, line by line. Emma Chen, you're about to be very, very rich. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Turned to find Dad standing in the doorway. Everything okay? He asked. You're missing dinner. Sarah was still talking, her voice carrying through the phone. And they want you involved in the writing room, so that's additional fees on top of the $4.2 million. Emma, you need to get an entertainment lawyer, like, yesterday. This is major deal territory. Dad's face had gone strange. Who are you talking to? I pulled the phone back to my ear. Sarah, can you hold on 1 second? Sure, but Emma, $4.2 million. For your book. I'm dying over here. I muted the call. Dad was staring at me. Did she say $4.2 million? From the dining room, conversation had stopped. I could feel everyone listening. My agent, I said quietly. About my book. Your book that no one wants to publish? Dad's voice was careful, confused. I unmuted the phone. Sarah, can you say that again? The whole thing. Slowly. The Netflix offer? Yes. Okay. Netflix is offering $4.20 million for exclusive adaptation rights to your novel, The Family We Keep. They want to develop it as a limited series. Major production, A-list actress attached, tentative launch date fall 2024. You'll have a consulting producer credit and back-end points. This is the biggest deal I've closed in my entire career. Her voice echoed through the living room, through the hallway, into the dining room where my family sat in complete, stunned silence. I walked slowly back to the dining room, phone still pressed to my ear. Every face at that table was frozen. Melissa's mouth hung open. Derek had set down his beer. Mom's hand was clutched to her chest. Uncle Paul looked like he might have a stroke. "Sarah, can I call you back in 10 minutes?" I asked. "Sure." "Oh my God, Emma, congratulations. You did it. You actually did it." I ended the call and set my phone carefully on the table. The silence was deafening. "4.2 million. Melissa's voice came out as a whisper. "For your book?" "For adaptation rights, yes," I said calmly. "Netflix wants to turn it into a series." Derek made a sound like he'd been punched. That's not possible. You don't even have a publisher." "I have an agent," I corrected. "I have 5 manuscripts under review at major publishing houses. And apparently, I have a Netflix deal." Mom's face had gone completely white. "But you never told us." "I tried," I said quietly. "4 years ago, when I got my agent, I tried to tell you." Derek laughed and said agents don't mean anything. 2 years ago, when my first book went to acquisitions at 3 publishers, I mentioned it. Melissa said, "Call me when you get an actual offer." Last year, when Netflix first expressed interest, I started to share the news. Dad cut me off to talk about Derek's restaurant. The table was silent. "So I stopped telling you," I continued, my voice steady. "I stopped sharing my victories because you'd already decided I was failing. You decided writing wasn't a real career, that my work didn't matter, that I should give up and get a real job. We were trying to protect you," Mom said weakly. "From what? From pursuing my passion? From doing the work I love? From building a career that just got me a $4.2 million deal?" Melissa's hands were shaking so badly she had to set down her wine glass. "4.2 million, she repeated. "That's more than I'll make in 60 years. 61.7 years, I said. "At your current salary." Uncle Paul made a choking sound. "How long have you known?" Dad asked, his voice barely audible. "About the Netflix interest?" 3 months. "About this specific offer?" "About 30 seconds before you heard it." Derek's face had gone from red to pale. "But you let me say all that stuff about TikTok and managing instead of thriving," I finished. "And little stories. And how I should marry rich." "Yes, I let you say it. Because I'd learned that defending myself was pointless. You'd already decided what my life was worth." Cousin Jennifer had tears running down her face. "I told you money isn't everything. I bragged about my $120,000 salary while you're making 4.2 million, I said. Plus back-end percentages. Plus consulting producer fees. Plus whatever my book advances end up being once publishers hear about the Netflix deal. My agent thinks we'll have offers by next week." Mom started crying. "We didn't know. Emma, we didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I said, and the words came out gentler than I expected. "You wanted me to fit into your definition of success. Corporate job, steady salary, benefits package. When I chose a different path, you decided I was failing before you ever looked at whether I was actually succeeding." Melissa was openly sobbing now. "Your tiny apartment, you said you were barely scraping by." I said I was managing. "You decided that meant struggling." "My apartment is tiny because I've been saving money. I have $180,000 in my savings account from freelance work and careful budgeting. I was already doing fine. Now I'm doing extraordinarily well." The silence that followed was broken only by Melissa's quiet crying. "Emma," Dad finally said, his voice cracking. "We're sorry. We were trying to help. We thought we were protecting you from disappointment." "You were protecting yourselves," I said, not unkindly. "From having to understand a career path you didn't recognize. From having to support a dream you didn't share. It was easier to dismiss me than to learn about what I actually do." Uncle Paul cleared his throat. What's the book about?" I almost laughed. "For years, and he was asking now. It's about a family that looks perfect from the outside," I said. "But they're built on secrets and lies and the crushing weight of expectations. It's about a daughter who builds a life they can't understand, and a family that has to reckon with their own blindness." The irony wasn't lost on anyone at the table. Mom stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need a minute." She left the dining room, Dad following close behind. I sat back down at my place, picked up my fork, and took a bite of cold turkey. Melissa wiped her eyes, mascara streaking her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Emma. God, I'm so sorry. I was horrible to you." "Yes," I agreed. "You were. Can we start over?" Can I learn about what you actually do? I looked at her, really looked at her. She was crying, and it seemed genuine. But 4 years of dismissal couldn't be erased by one apology prompted by a dollar amount. Maybe, I said. But not tonight. Tonight, I need to call my agent back and start processing the fact that my life just changed completely. Derek hadn't said a word. He sat frozen, beer forgotten, staring at the tablecloth. Derek? I asked. He looked up, and I was surprised to see tears in his eyes too. I was jealous, he said quietly. Of you. Of your freedom to just pursue something. I've been managing a restaurant I hate for 6 years because it's stable, because it's what Dad wanted. And you just did what you wanted. I hated you for it. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. I'm sorry I made you feel small, he continued. I'm sorry I laughed at your dreams. You were braver than all of us, and I couldn't handle it. I didn't know what to say to that. My phone buzzed. Sarah again, publishers are already calling. Word travels fast in this industry. You're about to have a bidding war for your other manuscripts. Emma, your entire life just changed. I stood, picking up my phone and purse. I should go. I have a lot of calls to make. Emma, wait, Melissa said, standing too. Please don't leave like this. We can talk, we can. We can talk later, I said. When everyone's had time to process this. When apologies aren't just shock responses to money. Right now, I need to handle my career. My very real, very successful career. I walked to the front door. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, voices calling my name, Mom coming back into the room asking what was happening. I stepped out into the cold December night, got into my car, and sat in the darkness for a long moment. Then I called Sarah back. Okay, I said. Let's do this. Let's review every word of that contract. Let's plan the announcement. Let's change my entire life. That's my girl, Sarah said, and I could hear her grinning. Emma Chen, New York Times bestselling author and Netflix showrunner. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? It did. It really did. 3 weeks later, the announcement went public. My face was in Publishers Weekly, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter. Debut author lands $4.2 million Netflix deal, read the headlines. My phone exploded with messages. Friends, colleagues, writing groups I'd been part of years ago. Everyone wanted to congratulate me, to tell me they'd always known I'd make it. And my family called, texted, emailed. Mom's messages were desperate, please come to dinner. We need to talk properly. We're so proud of you. Melissa's were apologetic, I understand if you hate me. I deserve it. But I'm reading your book now. It's incredible. You're incredible. Derek sent one simple text, you were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't respond to most of them. I was too busy. Busy reviewing publishing contracts, 3 houses were bidding, advance amounts climbing past $500,000. Busy meeting with entertainment lawyers about the Netflix deal. Busy being interviewed by literary magazines and industry publications. Busy living the life I'd built while they told me I was failing. 6 weeks after Christmas, I finally agreed to meet Melissa for coffee. She looked thinner, tired. Thank you for seeing me, she said immediately. You're my sister, I said. I was always going to see you eventually. I read your book, she said. The one Netflix bought. Emma, it's devastating. And beautiful. And I understood, reading it, how little I understood you. I sipped my latte, saying nothing. The main character, Melissa continued. The daughter who leaves her family because they can't see her for who she is, that's you, isn't it? It's fiction, I said carefully. Fiction based on truth. She was crying again. I was the sister in that book. The one who tears her down to feel superior. I'm so sorry, Emma. I was cruel because I was insecure. You chose passion over safety, and I couldn't handle watching you succeed where I'd been too scared to try. It was probably the most self-aware thing Melissa had ever said. I don't hate you, I said quietly. I was hurt. Angry. Disappointed. But I don't hate you. Can we start over? She asked. Can I learn about your actual life? Your work? Not because you're successful now, but because you're my sister and I should have cared 4 years ago. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Maybe, I said. But slowly. You don't get to be part of my success now after mocking my struggle then. If we rebuild this relationship, it's because we both want a relationship, not because my career finally impressed you. She nodded, wiping her eyes. That's fair. That's more than fair. We talked for an hour. I told her about the writing process, about my agent, about the years of rejection before the breakthrough. She listened, really listened, for maybe the first time ever. When we left, she hugged me. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I should have said that 4 years ago. Yes, I agreed. You should have. A year later, my debut novel hit the New York Times bestseller list. The Netflix series went into production with an actress I'd idolized my entire life playing the lead. 2 more of my books sold to publishers for 6-figure advances. I bought a house. A real house with a yard and an office with floor-to-ceiling windows where I could write in natural light. My family came to the housewarming. All of them. They were careful, respectful, genuinely proud. Derek brought me a framed photo from that Christmas dinner, the last moment before everything changed. "So you never forget what it felt like to prove everyone wrong," he said. I hung it in my office. Not as a reminder of their dismissal, but as a reminder that I'd built this life despite it. That I'd chosen my path and walked it even when everyone told me I was wrong. Mom pulled me aside before they left. "I'm sorry I didn't believe in you," she said simply. "I'm sorry I measured success in paychecks and titles instead of passion and fulfillment. You were right. We were wrong." "I know," I said. And I did. The recognition felt good. The apologies mattered. But what mattered more was that I'd done it anyway. I'd written despite their doubts. I'd built a career despite their dismissal. I'd succeeded not because of their support, but in spite of its absence. That Christmas Eve phone call hadn't made me a writer. It had just proven to my family what I'd always known, that my little stories were never little at all. Have you ever had your passion dismissed as a hobby until it became impossible to ignore? How did you handle the people who doubted you? Share your story in the comments below.